We like to look at what is going on, find examples of your money being wasted and shine a light on it. So this week, it's £70 million. Makes me laugh. I have to laugh because these sums are so vast, and every single week we seem to be coming up with these examples of millions. In fact, actually, one of these days, I'm going to do a running total on how much money we've found that has been wasted. I am definitely, note to self, I'm going to do that. Anyway, this week, £70 million of wasted work on a temporary chamber. This has been to rehouse MPs amid certain uncertainty about the future of plans to refurb Parliament. So joining me now to go through this is Duncan Simpson, who's the Research Director of the Taxpayers Alliance. Good evening to you. What is going on here?
Well, the House of Commons report, their sort of annual accounts, was published at the end of last week, and it shows that £70 million was written off. So something has happened, as you say. There was basically a building next to the main parliamentary estate that we're trying to convert or rather create a temporary chamber for MPs to go into. And this feeds into the whole parliamentary restoration and renewal programme, what it's called. Now, we don't know too many more details at the moment in terms of how much the whole cost is going to be. The House of Commons, the House of Lords, the whole estate essentially has to be redone because Parliament is falling down. But nevertheless, this is sort of one of the first indications that we have that, well, one, the cost of this is going to be pretty astronomical, but a lot of the clarity in terms of we don't even know how long it's going to take, the overall picture of where MPs are going to be in a few months' time, it doesn't look particularly good at this stage.
But how do we lack so many basic details? Because, I mean, anyone that does a renovation project, and I accept that renovating the Houses of Parliament is slightly more complex than, say, doing a loft conversion, but nonetheless, a basic amount of project management would have a clear plan. This is what we're going to do. This is the time frame. This is contingency if things go slightly out of thing, and this is the budget. Why is that lacking?
So MPs and peers haven't yet decided exactly what they're doing. So it could be the case, there's three options basically. One is sort of a full decant, so everyone leaves, and that's the quickest way to do it. Or it's half and half, so the Commons are out, but the Lords are in, and then vice versa. Or they just stay there for between, I think, 30 and 35 years to gradually and very, very slowly do the work. So MPs... 35 years? Up to that. That's sort of one idea produced by Deloitte. They did a report about 5 years ago looking into that, and obviously the cost is greatest if they're staying there for the longest period of time. But they still haven't decided. So there's this big report, which the government's going to present to Parliament in, I think, sort of February or March time next year. MPs and peers will then decide what they're going to do, where they want to be working as parliamentarians in the future. But at this stage, we're really waiting on what the government actually wants to do for Parliament in the future, because, you know, the hard numbers, I think they're being worked on, but we don't know exactly what the picture's going to be looking like. And
how transparent do they have to be with us? Because, you know, we are paying for this, essentially, as taxpayers. We are funding this leisurely decision-making process as to when they choose where they want to be and how nice the renovations are going to be at the end of it. And by the way, I mean, I can't remember the cost now of Boris Johnson's flat, but if that's anything to go by, the renovation is going to be eye-watering. Yeah,
that's the real worry, and it's good that Parliament will have a proper debate about this. Bad opinions can be aired, good ones can be aired, but it's really important as we go through this, and it will be a multi-year process, that contracts which are signed for any piece of work in Parliament is as open and transparent as possible. That means that you need to have good competition when you're finding people to actually do the work on the parliamentary estate, and so that needs to be consistently applied by the parliamentary authorities and the government in the years ahead, because if that's not the case, then we're going to have more of these nasty shocks which we found in the accounts last week.
Right, and this 70 million then, we know it's been written off. When do we get more details on where it's gone?
Well, we do know it's essentially sort of a temporary structure in bottom of Whitehall, sort of next to the parliamentary estate. Now, we don't know whether that will be carried on at some stage. Essentially, the accounts say that, well, actually, this has been written off because we just don't know what's happening in the future. So this temporary work has happened. It might become permanent. It might not. So there might be something to show for it, or there might not be in a few years' time. We just don't know at this stage.
Goodness me. Was you going to say something there, Tom?
Well, I just think it's extraordinary that we're talking about those sorts of sums of money. You know, in medieval times, our Parliament used to travel around the country. Maybe this is an opportunity for MPs. We talk a lot about the need to get out of London, about the levelling up agenda. I'm sure there are cities around the country that would eat your hand off for £70 million, you know, to set up an alternative chamber, whether it's Birmingham, Newcastle, Leeds, Hull. You know, they could travel around as an itinerant parliament. I think there's something you said about the parliamentary authorities. Isn't there an issue here about the fact that ultimately the MPs get a say on whether or not to move out, whether or not to stay for 35 years? This is probably something that should be taken out of the hands of the MPs and actually decided, as you're saying, more on business grounds. come up with a price for the renovation, do it as a design and build, and stick to it. And frankly, heads should roll if people fail to meet those deadlines, and particularly if they're wasting public money. Because whenever you talk on this show, Michelle, and you interview our wonderful guests, it's like there's never seems to be any accountability. No one seems to get fired at the end of this, do they, for wasting vast amounts of public money?
Well, I've made a decision tonight, and I'm going to create some kind of tally, because you guys come in and talk to me every single week when you find this money, and there is millions and millions and millions of pounds, and maybe we'll do, like, I don't know, like a quarterly review of how much money is being wasted, because when you hear these conversations about we don't have no money, we need to tighten our belts, etc., then, you know, courtesy of GB News, we'll be able to go back to them and say, well, hang on a second, because here's X amount that we could find you. Anyway, I'm sure I'll see you next week. One of the things I want to talk to you about, not now, but in the coming weeks, is about the price, the cost of health tourism as well, because I know that there's some outstanding, eye-watering amounts of money that the NHS is due and hasn't been able to reclaim. But got to say, I do feel like I've over-talked about the NHS tonight. So I'll give you a night off that topic, and we'll cover it maybe next week or the one after. But for now, Duncan Simpson, thank you very much for your time.